Welcome to the new and improved Ohio Valley Sports Blog Video Podcast. I'm BJ.
I'm Cody.
I'm Ian.
All right, let's start out with the Steelers at 5-8. At this point, they're all but out of the playoff race. At this point in the season, do you start showcasing your young talent to see what you have going forward?
I think you absolutely do. Something I'd really like to see that we haven't seen at all this year is Marcus Wheaton. I know he was out a couple weeks with that, a couple games with that pinky finger injury, something, but he has just not been on the field at all. I feel like you need to give him some more playing time because you spent a third round pick on him. So,
Right. I mean, he's a guy. You have Emmanuel Sanders. He's probably going to leave. The Steelers aren't going to pay him. That's not what they do, and he's had a lot of big drops this year anyways. So, I mean, you'd have to go with Wheaton to see what you had to see if you need to spend another high pick on a receiver, because if Sammy Watkins is there in the first round and you don't think Wheaton's going to turn out, then you have to take Watkins.
And I don't ever feel like Wheaton was going to be your replacement number 2. He was the guy that you're going to go downfield with to be in that number 3 slot. But the problem is that I guess it's a good problem to have, is the emergence of Jericho Cotcher this year. He's having a career high in touchdowns with 8. I mean, he's really been, besides Antonio Brown, he's really been Ben's go-to target. And another positive thing is that the offensive line, you're playing a lot of young people. Cody Wallace got some time at center because of Velasco and Pouncey.
Yeah.
So you're seeing what you got with the offensive line. So that's good because next year, you'll have Pouncey back. I mean, you wasted a draft pick on Levi Brown. So.
No, he didn't play as a conditional draft pick.
Oh, okay.
But either way, better. I mean, I was pretty impressed with the offensive line play from Sunday. No one's really talking about that. I mean, obviously they lost the game. It was inches away from a win. But, I mean, you had a guy who's never played in the NFL before. You had him as your center the entire game, and you didn't have any problems with it. I mean,
he had a couple bad plays, like the first third down on the drive. You just kind of saw they kind of bull rushed him right through and got to Ben. But after that, he really did settle down. Another person I'd like to see get more playing time is Shamarko Thomas. He had a concussion earlier, so he missed a couple games with that. But I feel like you should play him either over Ryan Clark or maybe play him in the Will Allen slot. Because no offense to Will Allen, but he's older, and you know what you get when you have Will Allen. You have to start evaluating this stuff and seeing where you're at, because if not, you're just going to be in the same boat, overpaying old players, and you'll never get better.
But the question that I'm going to just kind of throw out to you guys is, I feel like there's a fine line between evaluating talent and tanking on a season.
I'm not.
So the way it's going to be is, yes, you want to evaluate what you have moving forward, see where you want to improve in the draft, and see what you already have in your organization to make sure that you're not doubling up too much on things that you don't really need to go get, and really improve on areas that you do need to go get. But they're not mathematically out of it. A lot of things have to happen, yes, and I'm not gonna say that they're getting in the playoffs, because I don't think they're going to. But why would you just admit defeat? You're the Pittsburgh Steelers. Don't admit defeat. Just play the games and see what happens. You don't know what's going to happen. Play the games. You're the Pittsburgh Steelers. You're one of the proudest, longest-standing organizations in the NFL, and I feel like you have to really showcase what you have.
I'm not saying you go out and tank it, Ian, but I'm saying with the play of how bad Ryan Clark has been this year, I mean, can it be any worse with Shamarko Thomas? I mean, busted coverages, being too slow, costing your team 15 yards with illegal hits. I mean, even with Ike Taylor, I mean, there's probably some young cornerbacks on the roster that can get burned just as bad as he does.
Yeah, so let's move on to the other team that we talk about here in this division, the Cleveland Browns.
I thought you were going to say the Ravens.
Let's not talk about the Ravens. They suffered that defeat on Sunday, the New England Patriots, and I'm not even going to talk about how they lost because I'm so emotionally traumatized about it. What I'm going to ask you two is, despite the fact that this back half of the season has kind of become a typical Cleveland Browns back half of the season, where things just kind of fall apart and nothing seems to go the right way. Do you feel more confident going forward now that the group that is in charge of this team now can be the one that leads this team back to some semblance of relevancy?
I think I like this management group. I like Chodzinski. Say that right?
Yeah, Rob Chudzinski, yep.
You saw earlier in the season they really had some momentum going for them when they had Brian Hoyer in there. You lose your quarterback for whatever reason. They go to Whedon instead of Campbell at first, which why is anyone playing Brandon Whedon? Paying Brandon Whedon to play football is beyond me. So, I mean, I feel like the team as a whole, I mean, the defense is really impressive this year. I feel like the team as a whole is headed in the right direction. I really like this management group.
Yeah, I agree with you. And Ian, you talked about them being relevant. They were relevant pretty much until up again, 2 weeks ago, really. It was that Pittsburgh game that the winner of Pittsburgh-Cleveland was probably out of the playoff race.
Well, I'd say they were probably relevant up until about the Cincinnati game.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
That's kind of where the wheels just kind of fell off.
I'll give you that. But I mean, you're right. They have a great defense. I mean, Joe Hayden's been playing at a Pro Bowl level again.
Mm-hmm.
Paul Kruger's done a nice job. Phil Taylor continues to develop. I mean, and then they have Barkevious Mingo, who really isn't seeing the playing field because they draft him in the first round, and they just have I can't think of the linebacker's name.
DeQuell Jackson. And,
the other one, who they thought was eventually going to be replaced by Barkevious at some point in the season, and he's gone out and played well. So Barkevious really hasn't seen the field all that much, except for on some third downs.
Yeah.
They're just real. I feel like the defenses can keep it in games for them.
I mean, let's be honest. The problem at this team right now is no quarterback and no running game.
That's
because,
huge.
Let's be honest. Josh Gordon is
a great receiver.
Pro Bowler.
I saw a stat the other day. Larry Fitzgerald, 747 receiving yards all season. Josh Gordon's last 4 games, 747 receiving yards.
Yeah. The guy's he's been the entire offense for the last couple of weeks now. So you get a quarterback, you get a running game going, and you get a team that the reason the Browns have lost, in my opinion, these last couple of games is because they haven't been able to keep the defense off the field. That's a great defense, and I trust that defense against any offense in the league for the most part. But when they're on the field half the game,
they're going to get tired.
They're going to get tired and they're going to get beaten. That's exactly what you've seen happen the last couple of games.
Yeah, I mean, taking the bad penalty call out of it, they really played a really good defensive game against the Patriots. I mean, you saw what the Patriots did to the Steelers, 55 points. Ouch. And then the Browns were able to hold them, what was it, 27...
25 or something.
Yeah,
I knew it was a weird score. Yeah. So they were able to hold them to like 27, 26 points, which is pretty impressive.
It was 28-27.
Yes,
28 points.
Yes, that's what it was.
So
Cundiff missed the 58-yarder.
The 59-yarder to win it.
I mean,
which I thought he made it and started running through the kitchen at work like a madman, and then they tell me that he missed it. So.
I mean, you're right though. I mean, they're a quarterback and a running game away. I mean. So I feel like
they have draft picks.
They have 2 first-round draft picks.
And
coming.
they get a chance to redeem themselves for the bad draft that they had 2 years ago with Whedon and Richardson, because we've seen how Richardson's panned out. Cleveland's general manager right now is looking like a genius.
Yeah, Joe Banner's looking like Einstein.
They get the quarterback they want. I feel they're heading in the right direction, but they need more time because now they're going to have no excuses because they could have said, oh, well, that's not our quarterback. Right. And you saw what they did with an average journeyman like Jason Campbell and Brian Hoyer. At times, the offense looked really good. You had Jordan Cameron, Josh Gordon. I mean, Greg Little, he still drops the ball.
Devon Bess, I've been impressed with.
So there's pieces there. But they're just missing that one piece.
I feel now that this team is a lot closer to getting to that next level than it was maybe 3 or 4 years ago, where I felt like they were light years away.
Right.
So let's move on to some college football. Ohio State gets up to number 2 in the BCS. Everything's lining up for them if they can just beat Michigan State. and then they go out there and make Connor Cook look like Tom Brady. So I want to pose a question. What do you do with Luke Fickell at this point? Do you put the blame on him? Is he the reason that the defense has been so bad these past couple of games? Because this is a Michigan State team that even when they were beating bad Big Ten teams, they were beating them like 14-3, 17-6. Like they weren't putting points up, and
No.
then you let them.
I mean, you got to give credit to Connor Cook and the Michigan State because they have been getting better with each passing week. Because he's still young. I think he's only a sophomore, I believe. So, but I think what you're finally seeing, I think you're finally seeing Ohio State's their youth show on defense because Duran Grant in a perfect world probably wouldn't have seen the field all this much this year because you could just tell he's not ready. You think he's gonna be good, or at least good enough to play at the college level, but he was thrown in there with the Christian Bryant injury. And then you got to think our two best pass rushers are true freshmen. I mean, there's a lot of talent on the defense. I mean,
I feel like if Ohio State develops any semblance of a pass rush in that game, they win that game going away.
Because at times when
Joey Bosa,
when he was in there getting pressure, Connor Cook looked terrible.
Exactly.
Right, but the problem was Joey Bosa was the only defensive end getting pressure the entire game.
I asked you this in the immediate aftermath of the game. Where is Adolphus Washington gone?
He's taken a step back this year. I really feel like he has.
Yeah.
Shazier played another good game, but of course you're going to lose him this year.
And earlier this year, Kirk Herbstreit was doing a question and answer on Twitter, and someone asked about Ohio State, and he said they're a year away. Their defense is too young. I mean, at that point, they're undefeated. They've won so many games in a row. I was frustrated. I was like, oh, no, he doesn't know what he's talking about. But looking back now, the defense is a year away. I mean, like you said, Cody, they have all the talent there. It's just a year away. And I don't know if Fickell needs to go, but he needs to adjust. He seems like a guy that doesn't like to adjust. Like after the Michigan win, reporters asked him, why did you give up 41 points? Like what happened? And he said, we won, didn't we? But you can't have that attitude when you give up 6 touchdowns to a bad Michigan team.
No, it was
so. He just needs to adjust.
I don't think they need to get rid of Luke Fickell. I mean, we're forgetting this is Urban Meyer's handpicked man to lead this defense.
That's true.
So
he could have picked anybody.
I will trust him to run this defense. I feel like Ohio State got 0 pass rush in that game, with the exception of Joey Bosa. And the defensive secondary probably played the worst game of their lives.
Yeah.
Bradley Roby played a really average at best game.
I haven't been impressed with Roby this year. He's going to the NFL draft, which is fine, but I feel like his stock has really tanked this year.
Yeah. I think C.J. Barnett played about the worst game of his career.
I feel like he's always been not like the Ryan. I feel like he's been like the Ryan Clark to the Roby and the Christian Bryant. He only looked good when you had really 2 solid corners in there. And then now that you only have one who's taken a step back, he's just been terrible this year. Every time there's a big play, it's Barnett was on the coverage. I mean,
the 2 touchdown pass, the 2 really long, the one long, really long touchdown pass down to the 73-yarder or something like that.
Yeah,
it was C.J. Barnett's man.
Right.
And he just got beat by him down the sideline. I feel like I don't think it was entirely on Luke Fickell, because you can only do so much when your players are just having a bad night, and they picked the wrong night to have a bad night, obviously.
I mean,
but I'll say this: I'd have rather them had the bad night in the Big Ten championship game than the bad night in the national championship game.
That's true.
That's all I'll say. One of the biggest surprises, they've announced all the bowl games. One of the biggest surprises to me personally was Ohio University getting into a bowl game at 7-5, despite really falling apart down the stretch. So they're playing in the Beef O'Brady's Bowl against East Carolina in St. Petersburg, Florida. You guys surprised by this as well, that they got into a bowl game?
I'm not surprised, only because when it comes to bowl games and you have these companies and stuff that sponsor the bowl games, it's all about them making money. Ohio, the students from Athens, they travel well. And I feel like that's why they got in over Toledo, because Toledo just doesn't. They don't travel well. They don't. You know that stadium's going to be filled with people from Athens. They're going to come in. There's going to be a big party. They're going to drink a lot of beer, spend a lot of money, and that's why they're in a bowl game this year.
Yeah, I'm with Cody on this one. It's all about making money for the companies, and OU just has a better fan base.
Yeah.
But it was a little bit of a surprise though, because normally Bulls will select a team that's really gotten hot towards the end of the season, unless it's a big name.
Right. I mean, you got started out 3-5 or something, and you
And
win
then
4
they-
straight.
right.
Not you start out 5-2 and stumble to the finish.
Yeah.
So that was really surprising. Ian, any?
I mean, you look at the game, I think it'll be a really good game actually between the two schools. I think they're two pretty equal schools. East Carolina playing in Conference USA, and Ohio in the MAC. Obviously, I think those are two about even keel conferences where you could say that those two would probably equal out to a pretty good matchup. I'm hoping that Ohio fixes a lot of the problems that they've had in recent weeks over the break, namely on the defensive side of the ball. I mean, they've just struggled to get any key stops at times, and that offense has just spun its wheels for the most part. But I'm happy that they're in a bowl game. It's another bowl game that's 4 straight now, I think. 4 straight bowl games. And it would be a 3rd straight win, so that's another big one.
Right.
Yeah.
You really like to see this senior class
Absolutely
go out on top, because they've done so
Absolutely.
much for this program. They've really taken it to a new level, and for them not to be in a bowl game, they probably would be pretty disappointed. So it's nice to see that.
Let's talk about a team that's not going to be in a bowl game. Let's talk about WVU. They went 4-8 this year.
I think.
They were 4-6. All they had to do was beat 2 really bad Big 12 teams to get a bowl bid, and they couldn't. And then it was either last week or the week before, Oliver Luck comes out and gives Dana Holgorsen a vote of confidence. He's not going anywhere. Should he be?
Yeah. I said it about halfway through the season. I said Dana Holgorsen's not out the door. He's halfway gone already. I mean, he's not on the hot seat. He's halfway out the door is what I said. And I'm still holding true to that. This guy, it's obvious that he cannot coach this team and he cannot win at this level. It's apparently obvious to anyone with eyes at this point that he is not the man to lead this program.
Right. He's another example. Just because you're a good coordinator doesn't mean you're not going to be a good head coach. Yeah, I mean, he's still a really good offensive mind. As rough as the season was, the offense was pretty decent this year. But there's a big difference between being in charge of the offense and running a program, recruiting, being in charge. I don't know if he's cut out for all of that. I think that he should just try and get on as a coordinator at a bigger program, which he could do and do well.
Yeah, and I think that what Oliver Luck is banking on is, first of all, I think he doesn't want to admit that he's wrong. I think he's that kind of guy that doesn't want to admit that he made a mistake and letting Bill
Doesn't
Stewart
want to swallow
go.
his ego.
Yeah, I mean, they let Bill Stewart go and brought this guy in, and I mean, Bill Stewart was doing pretty well. But I think what he's waiting on is so Holgorsen can say, I had all my players in here,
Right.
and this is what happened. Because at this point, the last of Stewart's players will be out with this senior class. So you'll have all of Holgorsen's recruits. So if he can't pan out with his guys and who he brought in, then you send him out the door. But I still think it should have been this year.
It should have.
Because, I mean,
the
you
last
went
couple of
4-8.
years have been a disaster.
Yeah, I mean,
You went 6-6 with one of probably the best college offenses in a while.
Yeah.
I mean, when you start out 5-0 and you limp to the finish going 1-6, I mean
That should be a red flag there.
Yeah,
but it
that's
wasn't.
a warning sign to me.
All right, let's move on. Let's play a game. I'm gonna give you guys a topic. You're gonna give me one word to describe that topic. Let's start out with Mike Shanahan announcing today that RG3 is going to be shut down for the season. Cody, one word.
I would say I'm gonna go with smart. on this one. Shanahan made the mistake of bringing him back too early and letting RG3 dictate when he gets back by saying he was ready. He wasn't ready to return. So at this point, I mean, they're not even playing for draft picks because they traded them all away. So to lose your franchise quarterback, it's just not smart. So it's smart they're shutting him down.
Ian?
Frustrating, I'd say. I think it's just going to show that this not just this team, but this entire organization is just kind of in a train wreck kind of mode at this point.
For sure.
It's all a mess. There's infighting. It's just an utter disaster at this point. It's just frustrating to watch for me.
BJ?
I would say hindsight. You should have not brought him back so early. You should have known that this guy was your future as the franchise, and you should have really been cautious with bringing him back.
Okay.
Let's move on to the Sean Thornton incident.
We all know what happened by now.
Right.
So
Cody, one word to describe it.
Criminal. People go to jail for lesser assaults and crimes, and he beat somebody with a glove and put him in the hospital. That's just criminal.
Disgusting would be my choice.
Many words.
Yeah.
This is a hard one.
Disgusting. But you and I know as well as anybody else that Brendan Shanahan's going to give him like 5 games and a $50,000
slapping on the wrist, really,
or fine or something like that.
Mini vacation.
It was horrible what he did, but he's not going to get anything for it.
BJ?
I'd say illegal. If this happened on the street and not in a hockey rink, then Thornton would be in jail on assault charges. It's ridiculous. I was listening to a radio show the other day. I don't know why, and they're talking about this, I don't know why, because it's in a sporting event, it gets passed on as it's okay, but it's not. It was an assault, and it's illegal.
Well, this will definitely go up there with the Albert Hainsworth stepping on a guy's head incident. Like, just bad sports incidents. Moving on, I'll take this next one. The Mariners signed Robinson Cano to a 10-year, $240 million deal. Ian, let me hear your word for this.
Ha ha. Because New York wants to overpay for Jacoby Ellsbury, but they won't pay to keep Robinson Cano, who's been the most consistently reliable hitter in their lineup for the last 5 years. Ha ha. You'll love it when they beat you out for a playoff spot, is all I'll say.
BJ?
Dumb. I understand that the Mariners have the money to do this. They got a really good TV deal they're getting a ton of money from. But I don't know how many times that this situation has to play out for teams to realize it's stupid. How's Albert Pujols doing in Los Angeles on that 10-year deal? Hey, how's A-Rod doing in New York on that 10-year deal? It's stupid. 10 years for a 31-year-old? No.
I'm going to say... It is dumb. You know what? I'll go on the other end of this, though. I'll say about time. Or, good for them. So, I mean, this is the market. That's what it is. Unfortunately, that's what it is these days with these big mega superstars. They just demand these kind of deals. And good for them for, stepping up to the plate and say, we're going to go out, we're all in this year.
Stepping up to the plate. Let's talk about the Heat Pacers game last night. Cody, one word to describe it.
Hype. It lived up to the hype. It was like they picked up right where they left off in Game 7 of last year. Miami came out swinging and gave them their best shot, and then some questionable coaching moves by Spoelstra. They kept LeBron on the bench most of the second quarter when their lead was anywhere from about 10 to 16 points, and they kind of let him rest. And I felt like he was on in the beginning, and they kind of wasted an opportunity. But then Paul George came back and really showed why he's a young emerging superstar. So it lived up to the hype.
I'm going to say message. I think the Pacers sent a clear message last night that they are the best team in the NBA, not just in the East. They're far and away the best team in the East. I think they're the best team in the NBA. to
That's what-
to win
and
in that
basketball knowledge.
to win like that against the two-time defending NBA champions, to take their best shot to come rallying back like that. I think they sent a clear message last night.
I'm gonna say George. Paul George is awesome. What do you have? 17 fourth quarter points.
17 second half points.
Second
but
half
he-
points.
yeah,
I mean, he
his-
really carried them in the second half and brought them back. Last one word subject: Heisman finalist. Ian.
Maction. Jordan Lynch for Heisman. 4,000 total offensive yards, 40 touchdowns, 6 interceptions. I know what you're going to say, and don't even say it, because nobody puts up those kind of numbers against any kind of competition. So don't even say it. The guy is clearly, in my opinion, the best college football player in the country. And that's what the award says. Jordan Lynch for Heisman.
Cody.
When you don't beat Bowling Green and you don't show up, you
Right.
don't win a Heisman.
He showed up. The rest of the team didn't show up.
I would say uninteresting, overrated. I mean, at this point, it's whoever has the best storyline. Last year was the first freshman winning it. This year is, can a freshman again repeat it? I mean, they're totally ignoring the best players in the country. I mean, Andre Williams from Boston College pretty much put the team on he put their team on his shoulders and said, I'll carry us to a good season. Had over 2,200 rushing yards, and he probably won't even go. I mean, he might finish at like 4th. So,
I'm gonna say. I don't want to say dumb again, but maybe stupid. I mean, it's all about like AJ McCarron's the finalist. Are you kidding me? Sure, he's a good quarterback, won back-to-back national championships, but stats-wise, he's not done anything impressive. Winston's gonna win. It's not gonna be close, but I'm with Cody on this one. It's all about a storyline.
Manti Te'o finished 2nd last year.
Right,
with his
because
fake
because
girlfriend.
because his fake girlfriend died.
He had just as good numbers as Ryan Shazier last year. Shazier probably had better numbers last year,
Right.
and he didn't even go to New York. So it's all about storylines. It's really not exciting.
Okay, let's talk about the Penguins. Cody, with all the injuries they've had so far, I mean, I know other teams have sustained injuries too. With all the injuries they've had so far, are you surprised with how dominant they've been?
No, because it's the regular season. But I will say I'm surprised on how well Fleury's played, because he goes from being benched and not even seeing the ice again after the Islanders series to hearing all summer, is there a controversy at goalie with him and Vokoun, and then to unfortunately lose Vokoun with his blood clots situation. He ignored all of that and has come out and played really well. Probably one of the, I'd say, top 3 goaltenders in the league at this point.
Yeah, I think this is a team that's shown how deep this organization is as a whole.
Mm-hmm.
They get an injury, they call a guy up from the AHL, and he steps into the role perfectly. And it seems like this team doesn't even miss a beat. This whole organization, top to bottom, is just class the whole way through. Some of the best talent in the world is in this organization, and we're lucky to have it because it's fun to watch. I'd watch any one of these guys suit up for any team because they're all really, really super talented players, and that's been showcased over the last couple of games.
Yeah, I've been impressed. With all the trades Ray Shero makes, it's amazing that there is so much depth. But yeah, I've been really impressed with the depth. I mean, it feels like there's a new AHL forward up every night, and it feels like they always get a goal in their first game.
Yeah.
That's a tradition, actually.
I think it's an induction ceremony at this point.
But you're right, Ian. It just speaks to the depth of the organization. I mean, Cody, you're talking about Fleury, but how about Zatkov? I mean, after he had a really rough start, which I mean is kind of expected, but after his rough start, I mean, he's been a really solid backup, which you thought you were going to miss this year with Vokoun.
Right, absolutely. He's really stepped up and played well. I think at one point he was like 5-1 in his last 6. I mean, he's been
Something
playing
like that.
really well. And I'm surprised Bilesma. You could tell that. I mean, he's really changed some things around.
Yep.
He's trying new things. I mean, this is probably the most we've seen Malkin and Crosby playing on the ice at the same time in a while. I mean, since the two-headed monster days, really.
And guess what? They're good.
Yeah, I mean, they put like, I mean, Crosby, Neal, and Malkin out there. Crosby, Malkin, and Dupuis, Kunitz. I mean, it's just I think he's finally realizing I have the two best players in the world, and for 5 or 10 minutes a game, I should play them together because normally good things happen, and not just keep them on the power play.
Yeah.
I mean, Crosby's goal the other day against it was in the overtime.
The Islanders.
Against the Islanders, yes, where he stole the puck from a defender and then took on 3 defenders himself and then put it in. I mean, why wouldn't you pair that with arguably the second best player in the world in Malkin? So he's done a nice job finally adjusting. I mean, they're making defensive changes. They're trying different pairings all the time to get the right one. So I think this team, I know it's only December, but I really think this team has got a good shot at going to the finals.
Okay, let's finish up with some NBA talk. The Cavaliers have won 4 or 5 after their really, really bad start. So, Ian, are they moving in the right direction, or is this just kind of a product of the bad Eastern Conference?
Well, I feel like it's kind of a combination of the two, really. I think, like, obviously you can see this team is kind of starting to maybe a little bit buy into Mike Brown's system, what he's selling, and I think it's starting to kind of pay dividends a little bit. And I think they've kind of gotten their personal issues out of the way. There was the whole controversy with
Dion
Waiters and Johnson or Kyrie.
Yeah.
There was that whole thing. And I think they finally settled that and have really kind of meshed together and have kind of gotten on a hot streak now. It doesn't hurt that they play in one of the worst divisions in the worst conference in sports. But I think things are, and I'm a little bit encouraged by what I'm seeing now, finally.
Yeah, I mean, you looked at their roster preseason. You go, yeah, I mean that's a team that can make the playoffs in the Eastern Conference. Although no one knew it was going to be this bad.
They could be a 4 seed.
But I mean, you look at that roster and you go, yeah, I mean there's talent there. So it's nice to finally see it start paying off. It's nice to see Bynum hasn't gone down with a season-ending injury yet. I mean,
don't say that. It's only December.
I mean, it's December though. It's got to be a record for him, right?
I mean, he did play he did play one big full season in LA and dominated the entire league. So that's the type of talent they have in him when he's healthy. It was discouraging when he talked about, I don't think I'll ever be able to jump the way I did and have the explosiveness, but I mean, he's played well. And they're setting the tracks. They're laying the plans. Everything's gonna fall back into place. LeBron's coming back next year, and then the team's really gonna be in the right direction.
Jesus God, no.
I mean, no, it's not gonna happen.
It's happening.
Please don't let it happen.
Yeah, it has been really encouraging to watch them lately. No, LeBron's not coming back.
I bet he does.
I mean, if you're LeBron, do you leave South Beach for Cleveland?
Why? He spends his off season in Akron.
That might even be worse than Cleveland.
I'm just saying, it's not like I mean, he still has a home and does a lot in Cleveland. And I mean, with the Heat, Dwayne Wade isn't what he used to be. Chris Bosh sucks. It's just time, if they win a championship this year or not. You got his 2 rings. He's coming back to Cleveland.
I don't think that's gonna happen, but.
Let's send him to the Golden State Warriors.
I mean, that'd be
fun. That'd be fun.
All right, thanks for watching, everybody.
See ya.